Hello and welcome to another edition of The Bastard Review. This time around I'm looking at ECW's Living Dangerously 98. This event took place on March 1st, 1998 in the Asbury Park Convention Center in Asbury Park, New Jersey. We start off the night with Doug Furnas taking on Masato Tanaka. Originally Tanaka was supposed to face Wing Kanemaru, but I guess Wing was unable to get into the US or something along those lines. They never really explain why. It kind of sucks because prior to the match they have a video package about the match they're going to have, and it looks like it would have been interesting. So the match that we do get is pretty adequate but not very special. Doug does a really nice standing Frankensteiner on Masato, but other than that there's really nothing that stands out in this match. There's one botched move and the ending seems kind of botched. I don't know if it's lack of experience from either guy, or maybe they just really didn't know each other well enough to put together a really good match. But this drags it down, and you know the audience is on their ass about it. There's a nice little segment at the end, but otherwise a pretty ho-hum way to start the show. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. After that, Rob Van Dam took on a returning Too Cold Scorpio. This was a great high-flying match. Too Cold gets a nice power bomb and moonsault in, and his 450 splash is a thing of beauty. I mean, you have to see it. Very few people can do it, but Too Cold is one of them. Both men were fittingly given a lot of time to wow the crowd, and by the end of the match, they had gotten their money's worth. A really solid match. I wish this was for a title, but that's okay. What's really funny is that around this time, Too Cold was working for WWF, which I'm under the assumption RVD was still a part of, so it was kind of funny that they were facing each other. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. The segment they have at the end is really good as well. I recommend watching it. After that, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley take on Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney and New Jack and Spike Dudley in a 3-way elimination match. My God, was this a violent match, but you come to expect it from these three teams, and this was really entertaining. There was one really big spot towards the end where Axel and Balls put Bubba Ray and Devon on tables out by the concession stands, and then Spike and New Jack dive off the balcony. It's gotta be like 20 feet right onto the Dudleys on the tables. Oh man, it looks so painful. They had to be clinically insane to do that. A crazy match. I wish it were a #1 contendership. There would have been a better payoff, and I think the ending came way too soon. I realize that spot probably took a lot out of the guys, but it still felt like it came too soon. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. After that, Tommy Dreamer takes on Justin Credible. Now the story behind this is Justin has been very disrespectful to ECW alumni. He took up Mikey Whipwreck and started working his way up the ladder, and Tommy Dreamer was the next person in line. This was your basic brawl match. There really wasn't anything that stood out to make it a special match. The ending was nice, and I think that's what saved it from being an average ho-hum match. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I'd like to go on record right now and say that Nicole Bass is the ugliest guy I've ever seen. She makes Chyna look attractive, so you know that must be bad. Next up, Bam Bam Bigelow takes on Taz for the ECW World Television title. This match came about because Taz and Bam Bam originally were kind of friends, more or less. They weren't enemies. They both didn't like Shane, and Taz agreed to team up with Bam Bam in a match against Shane and I think Candido. At the end of the match, Taz is holding his TV title over a fallen Shane, and at one point he lets go of the title. Bam Bam picks it up and lays Taz out with it, pretty much becoming part of the Triple Threat again. Taz decided to get revenge with this match, and it became a title match. This is another great match. You've probably seen this in a Clips match. This is where Bam Bam and Taz go through the ring floor. There's a big giant hole in one corner of the ring, and prior to that, Bam Bam and Taz are out on the elevated entrance ramp, and Taz does a T-bone Tazplex off the ramp with Bam Bam. And I think Bam Bam goes through a bunch of chairs, and I think Taz probably hurts himself on one of the guardrails. It's just a crazy spot. I don't know what they were thinking when they planned it. Just a really memorable match, worth seeing. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Now, because there's a hole in the ring, they have to cut to a previously taped match between Sabu and Sandman. It's a dual cane match or something. At the beginning of the pay-per-view, they were saying that they couldn't show it because it was too violent for pay-per-view. And then at the last minute, because of this, Paul Heyman decides to go against the rules and show it anyway, which I found very amusing because it's very typical ECW. I don't believe it for a second that it wasn't allowed, but for the sake of argument, I'll suspend my disbelief. This match was a brawl. It was what you would come to expect from a Sabu Sandman match. I don't understand why they call it dueling canes, because they hardly used them at all during the match. At the beginning, you're tricked because you think it's Sabu in the red trousers, but it's not. It's RVD. He's got his hair down and he's in Sabu's garb. And then Sabu comes out in blue trunks and attacks Sandman as well. It was a nice little bait and switch. I liked it. And at the end, RVD comes out again, and they do a very nice spot where they set up a table on the elevated entrance ramp. They put Sandman on the table, and then they get up on both corners and dive off, and they land with dueling leg drops on the Sandman. It should have been called a dueling leg drop match. The end is what you come to expect, but it was a pretty enjoyable match. Nothing really innovative, and I don't understand why they couldn't have shown it on pay-per-view. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Finally, we come to the main event. This has a lot of story behind it, so bear with me. Chris Candido and Lance Storm are tag team partners. They win the titles, and you think everything is rosy. Unfortunately, Sonny gets between the two of them. Chris gets jealous and takes it out on Lance, thus breaking up the tag team, but they're still tag team champions. They decide to face each other at this pay-per-view event with a tag team member of their choosing. Chris chooses Shane Douglas, and Lance Storm chooses somebody, but he never says who it is. It's a surprise. Sonny says she knows, but she's not telling Chris. Finally, we come to the match, and Lance Storm reveals his tag team partner to be Sonny. He knows that Chris is not going to harm Sonny in any way, because Chris loves Sonny. This is a very short match, probably about 10 minutes. It's more of a drama segment than an actual match. Some bad things happen for Lance. I'm not going to say what they are, but you can probably figure out what they are. And Al Snow comes to the rescue. It's a great segment, but as a match it falls very short. This is something I would expect to be a main event on television. On pay-per-view, it doesn't work. They should have put this after Dreamer Incredible and allowed Bam Bam and Taz to be the quasi-main event, showing Sabu and Sandman as the final match. So a pretty lackluster way to end the pay-per-view. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Overall, ECW's Living Dangerously is a pretty worthwhile pay-per-view. You've got 2 really great matches here, and only one that is kind of average. Everything else is just above average, but I think they could have done a little better with where they placed each match, but it's definitely worth checking out. ECW Compilist will probably already have this in their collection. If you're just an average wrestling fan, there are a couple things here you should check out. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Thank you for listening. Please tune in again to another Bastard review when I review another wrestling DVD in my collection or anything else that crosses my path.